Why am I doing this virtual?
Hey everyone, it's very great to be back. I can't believe we're actually launching into the second year of doing this, and first I want to thank the SMCAKL team because they have actually been really awesome. We all do it voluntarily, and basically it's an interest for us, but also it's sort of become a bit of a consuming passion. The one thing I did want to mention is most of the SMCAKL people actually run as freelancers, contractors, so if you want to look at the website for some of our skills, it's still free, it's fun for us. But first, thank you guys to Vodafone and Oracle for coming back on board this year. It's really made this into a very slick, professional function, and we really want to thank them for their support because actually it wouldn't be possible without this fantastic venue, and it wouldn't be possible to have this great food and drink and wine without Oracle, who, shall we say, have some building to after the installation. Anyway, really fantastic sponsors. Now, I want to ask Sarah Phillips to come up and say a few words on behalf of Vodafone and our wonderful sponsor.
Thank you very much. It's absolutely a privilege and a pleasure to have you all back here for another year. So we came on as hosts for SMCAKL at the beginning of last year. I think this is our 10th event that we've hosted, and it's just been an absolute success. So I have no doubt that we're going to have another great year, and we're kicking off with an absolutely fantastic topic. Very topical at the moment is social media anti-social. At the moment I run the Vodafone social media service team. So we're interfacing with huge amounts of people on a weekly basis. None of which are ever mean to us at all. So I'm really interested to hear everybody's thoughts tonight, and yeah, everyone have a great night. Make sure if you haven't, you get yourself a drink, something to eat. Remember, if you do need to go to the toilets, just pop back out to the lobby and through the double silver doors. Other than that, I'll hand it back over to you. Have a great night, everybody.
Thank you. Okay, and also I want to thank our other sponsors, which we've done really well for you. So we've got Mountain Goat Beer again, and I know there was a period where we had no beer, we were the names. Wine came on last minute to be our wine sponsors, so a big thank you to them. And then some who use Scarlet Spritzers, has anyone tried them? They're 1970s revisited apparently. And of course, the fantastic Pizza Contest. Pizza Frisco, who we've even got to eat the pizza because it's so popular. So now our first segment is of course our panel. I want to introduce our panel before we start. And it's a great panel actually. Everybody will know Russell Brown. He's a long time. He's almost an icon. Are you iconic now, Russell? You're an icon. Yeah, I think so. But Russell's sort of been here since the beginning of not only his experience on radio and TV, but he's actually been a social media pioneer as well. I'm trying to think how to describe you. So I'm looking forward to your insights. We've got Sarah Stewart, who's over there, and she's probably worked for every major publication in Australasia. As a journalist, one of our most experienced journalists, and she also was the editor of New Zealand Women's Weekly, and she has abandoned the dark or light side, which is where you look at it, to go to the NBA, and I'm really looking forward to hearing insights. His being on both sides of maybe the tabloid. And Dr. David Kodaya. Now, is Kodaya all right? Yeah. Now, David's part of, not only is he a clinical psychiatrist, he's also a consultant for the Nutters Club. If you don't know the Nutters Club, I highly recommend you either podcast it, listen to the radio broadcast, or watch it on TV. There's a lot of youth advocacy programs we can encountered in this country, and it has just made a trailblazing way, and it has a very strong community, so it's really interesting to see how that community works as opposed to perhaps the mainstream community. And of course me, and the program. So before we kick off on the panel, I'll show you a new thing, and I'm going to ask Belinda Nash to come up. Now, many people know Belinda. She's also a social media superstar, and she has as bubbly a personality as you would ever wish to meet. So it's great to see her to talk about her latest project. But that does the way that it's needed. I'll do the clicker.
Can you hear me?
No.
Now can you hear me? Oh, you can do the clicker. Oh, she's going to do the clicker. Yeah, hi, I'm Belinda from Around Us. That's a good slide.
Sorry, the old team for issue, we just lost these slides.
Okay, well, anyway, we run a project called About Us, which is in beta mode at the moment, so it's a startup, and it's about getting small businesses online, because we've identified that there's a really big problem in New Zealand that about 40% of New Zealand small businesses are online and engaged in digital, and the rest are not, and actually that's a very high estimate, that actually it's around 20% of businesses are online and using the internet. So we were trying to look for a solution for little businesses to get online in a really simple way. So for example, if your car breaks down in Gisborne and you need to get on Google, that at least can be found online without having to pay lots of money, and then behind that is a DIY sort of service on how to use social media. And so I write a newsroom, which is very, very simple. And what I want to get from all of you guys as experts in the field and working with clients on a daily basis is that we'd really love your stories and for you to show us what you're doing with clients or what you're doing within the teams, so we can tell your stories and showcase them as exemplars, and so that small businesses can get online and see what you're doing and do it better, and that's ultimately better for our economy and better for everyone. So that's what we're up to. But there's a video.
Which I hope just lost.
Oh yeah, and also Chorus were big funders of this project, and they were our startup supporters, and they got us on board. So
There we go. Lewis is irritating.
There are 469,118 businesses in New Zealand, large, medium and small. Kiwi start more than 30,000 businesses every year.
And our economy relies on us to succeed.
But we've got a problem.
It's the internet.
We just don't get it.
Social media.
E-commerce?
The cloud.
Fibre? What is fibre? Only 50% of us have websites.
And while we use social media every day in our personal lives, we still haven't figured out how to use it for our businesses.
This guy reckons if Kiwi businesses use the internet better, the result would be worth billions of dollars to our economy.
About Us is here to help New Zealand business succeed.
About Us is a digital hub that helps us use the internet better by doing 3 simple things.
It provides us with a smart digital business profile to make sure we get found by our customers when they search for us.
It provides us with a digital business dashboard, so we can pretty much run everything we do online from one place.
Our dashboard is also where we can check out content on all the latest digital tools and get tips and advice on how to grow our business.
And then there's a cloud store where we can find, compare and buy the best apps for our business.
About Us is the one-stop digital shop for everything we need to succeed.
Too easy.
This is just to make you all feel good about things and get your dopamine flowing. Okay. So this is the problem which we're trying to solve along with Chorus and a lot of other people. So this is the page that you go into when you first go in to sign up, and you just sign up, and the businesses just sign up in the top button, and from that point you can just go through a really quick, easy profile page, which takes you to. And so you basically every business can get a profile page like that, and then they can plug in things like their Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn and all their different accounts, and there's a dashboard that sits behind that The dashboard sits behind it, so you can actually start to see what the statistics are like in one place. So this is a very, very simple program and a simple way of using social media and of businesses getting on board without being overwhelmed. So they can, if they want to, they can post from within about us and that what's on your mind section, and that can go to specific areas if they want to, and then on the right is a newsfeed. So it's very simple, it's made to be simple. These are very basic algorithms, and anyone who, we're talking with the Retail Association and we're talking with Hospitality Association, and the idea is that there are small businesses who are scared of, who don't actually need a website. For example, a garage doesn't necessarily need a website because they are a garage, they do warrant fixes, they do lots of work on cars, and a profile page is probably enough as long as it's got contact details and a way of getting hold of the business. And this is the newsroom, which we're reimagining right this moment. My web developers are hard at work at this very moment. And so we've put everything in different sections, and we're looking at all the different channels that are available. We're looking at the idea of tackling vertical streams. So if you were a plumber, you could see what would be good for plumbers. If you're a retailer, you could look and see what's really good in the same area of retail. If you're selling cakes, for example, you could go and see what other cake people are doing and how you could get on board different channels. And so we're basically trying to champion what Kiwis are doing well and how other Kiwis can do it better. Oh, sorry, can you not hear me? Just said. So it's just a very simple tool, and what we'd love for you people to do is just to really connect with us and tell us what's doing well in the world, and also if you could tell us the struggles that you're seeing with small businesses and seeing what kind of challenges they're facing, what they need to know, and what we can look forward to show them and showcase. And at some point in the near future, we're going to be going up and down the country and meeting people using apps well and using different tools well on farms or in their van. We've got a good plumber who uses his Samsung and invoices from the van, things like that. So we're just, basically the idea is to get everyone on board with digital tools so that we can all move forward together. And it's timely because UFB is starting to come on board and we need to upskill our whole nation so that we can make some money out of it. Oh, it's free. But yeah, sorry, this is free. It's designed specifically in a sense to democratise the web, because we think that there's a sort of fundamental right to have a web page and a web presence for free. And it is very basic level, and from there you can plug in a website if you go down the website track and quite enjoy being online. But we just want people to get on board and enjoy it and use it and have a presence.
I think that's the best feature of the whole scheme, don't you? Thank you, Melinda. It was tsunami, and we set a panel up here, and everyone was come and sit, and we were underway. And I found out the other day, Windows 8 is finally acceptable feed, because I struggled with this. And they're going back to more of a Windows 7 version. Yay! Start sleeping today. So everyone, it's been an interesting month, and about, I'm not sure how long it was now, but I was sitting there going through Twitter, and it came up on my Twitter feed what I think is unbelievable news that Charlotte Dawson had taken her own life. And I really thought it felt very disheartened, because I've done work with another club, I'm aware of the struggles of people with depression, and how many people here have either known someone with depression or have had somebody kill themselves in their lives? It was close to the boyfriend. Yeah, they're both. In fact, the majority of funerals I've been to have been people who've taken their own lives. But the precursor and the aftermath have been almost a case study in a perfect storm of how social media can be both productive and vile. And it intrigued me at the time, and we were talking about it, whether it was celebrities in particular that are targeted, nowadays social media has just become an expressway for bullies. So what we wanted to explore tonight is why this hindrance, for a start. Are we being naive and stupid or crazy to think that it's going to ever be anything different, that it's just human nature? Or is there something we can do as a social media community, even within our own community, to advocate for just civil behaviour on social media? So we were discussing this, and someone said the vox populi. So anyone who's worked in journalism knows the old vox pop. You go out there, you ask random people what they think, as if we really care. But someone said vox populi, vox dei, which is voice of the people, voice of God. And I found the actual quote, which goes back to 1798. So obviously this is not a new problem. And the quote is here. And those people should not be listened to who keep saying the voice of the people is the voice of God, since the righteousness of the crowd is always very close to madness. And that quite nicely sums up Twitter. So it's worth exploring, and there's a more popular one from John Paul, which is how does other people. And I'm sure a lot of you who have been targeted on social media can just actually start this one show itself properly. But we'll understand this. So when I first broached this to David, and he came back with what I thought was some really interesting comments about the personalisation and objectification of people on social media. And I might actually ask David just to speak to us now. And is that what you think might be why things on Twitter degenerate so fast? Like when we're looking at this whole beforehand with celebrities, with Charlotte Dawson, with numerous celebrities, what you said, this is what you think that happens.
Yeah, just to, I guess, comment first about the whole thing of bullying, because, I mean, bullying is a huge issue, and it's, I mean, interestingly, in the lead up to this, the Australian New Zealand Journal of Psychiatry just came out last weekend, and for the most recent version, and one of the articles in there was about a guy basically making a case to say that bullying is probably the biggest preventable cause of mental illness in any of the communities around the Western world. So in this sense, I think it's not social media that's the problem, it's what people do. Social media is just a tool, and the more we're distanced from people in terms of communication, the more we will behave badly if given the opportunity. That's the bottom line.
Now, this is one of the things that you pointed out, and I thought I would highlight that, is maybe the drone warfare has actually now reached the extreme of objectification, that this is actual drones, and this was a comment on through where someone said, oh, did we just kill a kid? So it can be really extreme, can't it, that this objectification goes on a social media platform. Basically, drones are just video games with real guns. So, Russell, you've been at social media from the very beginning. Do you see over the last sort of time, sorry, it goes back to 1993. I don't know if anyone remembers this, but this is actually the first facts war before Twitter. This is before Twitter, between Julie Birch, a journalist, and she had a major battle with Neil Bedelia, and this is the end of it. And I thought, well, this is one of the first instances. And is this a fair comment, or is this bullying or abuse?
No, I actually thought that facts war was fantastic, because they both deserved it. There wasn't a power differential. I don't think anyone was unduly hurt at that. It was two people with fairly pro styles going with each other. I don't think it was that. But, I mean, people, a lot of people said since this topic's come up that, oh, it's always been the same.
Yeah.
Okay, the mic's on, I think. The mic's on, right? Right, much better. A lot of people have said since this issue came up that, oh, it's always been the same, this is no different to blogs and email. It actually is, because there are different dynamics in each medium, and the things that make Twitter spiral and Twitter bullying so awful are also the things that make Twitter so much fun and so effective. It's a really exciting dynamic that can slip into data. And I think we will, all of us same way we learned not to abuse each other in emails, to think twice before hitting the send button. And I kind of feel that we have to learn that anew with each new platform, because each new platform has a different dynamic.
And Sarah, you're also a long-term journalist, so how is the nature of journalism? Because there is a two-way feed here, because the media, it was interesting with the aftermath of Charlotte, how there was sort of a blame game going on with traditional media saying, oh, it's social media's fault. Social media saying, no, you guys are just as bad. And you have been in both newspapers and what we would call women's magazines. They are women's magazines. How do you feel in a way as a traditional reporter? How does this make you feel when you see, when you pick up on things on social media and run them and you see the effect that they have on people?
I'm not sure that it works so much like that, especially if you're talking about bullying and trolling. I don't think it works like that. And I think there was a really big difference with Charlotte and the kind of abuse that she suffered, because there was absolutely some really awful things written and said about her in the mainstream media, but they had absolutely nothing on the kind of trolling that she was seeing night after night after night. So, Charlotte, unfortunately, was the sort of person who would get on social media at night and read all these people saying absolutely horrendous things to her from a place of complete anonymity. Nobody knew who they were. There was no control over it. And so I think that's a really different thing to what happened to Charlotte through the gossip columns. And she knew how to work gossip columns as well. She was a really great friend of a woman in Australia called Ros Raines, who's the reigning gossip queen. And I think that Twitter added a really different dimension to the kind of abuse that celebrities receive, mostly because of that anonymity.
And I was trying to define this, because I was looking at, there seems to be a particular case study with celebrities that we both love them and we hate them. And it's interesting, Dave, why do you think we like to see them fail?
Well, the whole thing about them on stage is that a lot of people live their lives vicariously, don't they? And the more the media exposes the lives of the hello few to the many, the more the kind of people envy what they see that they can't have. But of course, the counter side of that is that what you envy, you love to then see fall apart, don't you? So it all just comes back to basic human nature, for it's better or worse. And I have to say, while today the focus is on the antisocial side, in fact, firstly, there is incredible good can come through social media as a tool, and certainly we've seen that through the Nutters Club, where people's lives have been transformed through support from anonymous others who walk that same path. And the other interesting thing, though, is that in that community, which originally we had a lot of anxieties about moderating, when all hell inevitably broke loose at 2 a.m. in the morning, the community self-regulated. And I think that's the thing that we've got to focus on, how to get people to self-regulate over social media in the way they do in real life when they're in a face-to-face group.
And how did they self-regulate it? Did someone take
by other people coming in and saying, "Hi-ho, actually, this is not okay," fundamentally, was what it came down to.
Yeah, I think that was a really strong point there, because we've all mastered the art of not tearing each other's eyes over a person. And one of the things that I think works on my side, some of the degrees that we do have pretty good discussions, is that it's quite strongly based on the sharing of experience, so people get humanised, so you're constantly reminded of the fact that this other person is in fact a person, which I think doesn't tend to happen with celebrities. And I think that's when people really go off the rail, is when they forget that the person they're addressing is a human being. But people can be bullies with the best of intentions. I really teed off on someone last year, and I actually regret it. I really regret it. But I was actually defending someone who I knew, because she'd shared it and reached out for support, was actually going through a mental health episode. And this person didn't know that and spoke to her inappropriately, and I think I could have handled that way. So that happens quite a lot, and that's what you saw with the Charlotte Dawson case. Poor old Deborah Hilton wrote an ill-advised column. She wasn't the only one to do so, but she seemed to cop most of the venom. And I was was ironic that people couldn't quite seem to see they were doing to her exactly what they were wanting to show. It was really good, actually.
What I thought was really interesting about that was that after that column came out and there were all those really terrible comments about Deborah on social media and on her own Facebook page, she just went offline for a week. And that was such a good idea. She didn't sit there night after night kind of tuning through it, which is exactly what Charlotte did. Charlotte could not let it go, you know.
I don't want to join Charlotte because I don't want to, it's not about you, it's about us in particular. But she was obviously, and I looked at her stats, she has 32,000 tweets, and that's a lot of tweeting. But she had a huge amount of followers as well. And I was going through her tweets, a lot of them were incredibly supportive. And I was just wondering if one of the factors, especially, is the percentage of negative to positive is usually quite low. And is it maybe the negativity bias in our brain that, and I've done it myself when I've been trolled. I had wrote an article, lots of great comments, 2 mean ones, and I'm like, is it that we just focus on the negative as well? Is this why this online, not even bullying, negativity, it's not always bullying, it's actually sometimes fear, but hard comment. Do we just focus on that by our direct bias?
I think you have to live not to. I've been online long enough that it doesn't bother me, and old enough it doesn't bother me, it tends to happen. But that's an easy thing to say and much harder to do.
I think that a number of factors, including our early experience, wires us differently as individuals in terms of whether we differentially notice the negative or the positive. And Mike, who I work with in the Artists Club, he has a beautiful example of it where he talks about standing up in front of 100 people doing his job as a comic. One person's not laughing, it's a disaster. And how crazy is that? You can acknowledge how crazy it is, but that's how his kind of mind was wired. Whereas other people won't be so affected by that. They'll see the positive and they'll discount the negative. Or if there's valid comment in it, then they might notice it, but they won't necessarily take it to heart.
And Sarah, I was interested, one of the things that struck me is that until social media came along, we had gatekeepers, media had gatekeepers, celebrity had gatekeepers, and some of the gatekeepers disappeared. So have you found that with your experience of journalism, when you started to now, that you no longer have that buffer between you and people who just don't like what you write?
Yeah, completely. And that's not a bad thing for journalists. I think it's really good. And that we should have that feedback. And you should know what people are thinking about what you're writing, because it's a big deal to put out whatever it is that you think. But I think the huge difference has been for celebrities, because for such a long time they haven't just had, only letters to the editor. They've had agents who have really protected them from whatever the masses think. And they've done that through things like controlling the copy that goes into magazines. All of a sudden, celebrities have a huge 62,000 fans for Charlotte. She has interaction directly with those people, most of which can be amazing, so you get a bit addicted to it. But then she has no filter for what comes back, and so, that's where the issue is.
And is it, celebrities in particular tend to be maybe in a narcissistic spectrum. So, I'm trying to politely, and the ones who in particular who feed off Twitter may also be higher up in that spectrum. And there's some people we've never seen on Twitter, there's some celebrities. Does anyone here know the name of Meryl Streep's children? No, you've never seen them appear in the media. Oh, some of us. But
Amy Gallagher is a very good actor was followed in Meryl Streep's footsteps.
yeah, but then every single move of Angelina and Brad Pitt. So there is that narcissistic content. Is that attributed, you think, to this whole issue?
I think it's that lack of control, that it was fine when the celebrity was in control of that in some way, but now that every time they go anywhere and people have cell phones and can take photos and can write about it. There was a great story just recently about a woman who sat next to a really D-grade actor I've never heard of on a plane, and she tweeted their whole conversation as they were sitting next to each other, and it was very unflattering for the guy because he was trying to hit on her and he was drunk and all that kind of thing. And her last tweet was something like, "Have I just ruined this guy's life?" And that sort of thing just didn't happen before, whereas now it's open slather. So it's a whole new world, especially for celebrities.
Well, just said celebrity, I just put this up as Cher, who I love because I'm an age, but she actually trolls her fans. Not long ago, you see her tweet at the very top, is someone bitched at her and he said, "You have no fucking idea, bitch." And then Cher, she's 60 morning, everyone. And I have to say, she's a tough old broad. She will be around after the nuclear explosion goes.
Can I ask you a question? Are we talking about women only?
No. Yeah, it's a very misogynistic element. And I was wondering, because in public address and your community, do you find that this is also big in the gaming community as well, this complaint of misogyny and also journalism?
Yeah, and most of us in nice little circles don't tend to see it. I actually wrote about it. A friend of mine, a female friend of mine, almost incidentally getting into a conversation with someone who was following me, and she was following me back. And this guy, quite rapidly, the whole thing degenerated. He got darker. His threats and insults got more gendered. Then he started threatening me. And that died down. Well, at least that's what I meant. Unfortunately, I wrote about it. He saw it. And it got much, much worse. And that was a little insight into what women can be subject to. And like I said, the weird thing is that most of us don't see it. But that's the nastiest thing. There are various forms of bullying, but the gender piece is often really quite scary.
But it'd also be for the gay community as well. I think it's often a power thing. So, you will find that in Islamic countries, the abuse towards women is way beyond anything we've experienced in the Western world. I followed a few Egyptian women journalists. And the hatred that is spewed there from males is for them daring to be on Twitter is actually quite extraordinary. So, is it a power and control thing that somehow Twitter has given people a feeling of power and control over others that they would not normally have?
No.
I see this David, but because that seems to be sometimes when I can abuse you because I can abuse you.
From my perspective, all that these media do is exaggerate behaviour that's already in people. Someone who is not by nature a bully doesn't become a social media bully. It just amplifies the natural kind of behaviours that a person is going to have anyway. It also makes them much more visible. I'm not sure if I've answered your question.
No, I kind of disagree. Perfectly nice people can join Twitter dialogues, Twitter outrage is a thing. And they are up to something very damaging form of crowd bullying. And people think they're doing the right thing.
Who here has ever tweeted something they wish they hadn't? Or put anything on Facebook or afterwards thought that was harsh, I shouldn't have said that. And the rest of you are lying, okay?
But equally, who could not say they haven't said something face to face that they wish they could kind of rewind?
I think there was a really great example of that though around the Roastbusters scandal. And I'm in no way, obviously, defending the Roastbusters, but the public vitriol against them and what was said about them on Twitter and what should happen to them in prison and the kind of punishments that they should receive, and it was vile. It was really vile, and that was said, looking at the comments, they looked like your everyday kind of mum and dad thinking that they were defending their daughters, but it was revolting. Yep. And I think that's just exactly what Russell's talking about, is that you can get into this fervour of crowd outrage and suddenly...
And I think that's a real characteristic of Twitter. It's one of the things that makes Twitter different, is the speed and the dynamism of which this kind of outrage can actually mount. And that's one of the things I think we need to learn to manage.
And is there any realistic way to manage that? I mean, it's self-managed within the Nuz Club, which is actually, I think, do you think that's a legacy, that it's an established community that was already empathetic towards each other?
Look, I can't really explain why and how it happened. I mean, it just did. And what it illustrated, though, was that, those people are just a bunch of ordinary people. They just happen to have had issues that have popped them into moments or periods of mental health struggle. But what it illustrated was the potential for a community like that to self-regulate, as opposed to kind of give vent to whatever they happen to want to. I mean, there is a dark side of all of us. And socially, if you look back in history, there are many, many examples of that crowd phenomenon where ordinary, reasonable people have done unreasonable and vile things. And like all these things, social media just kind of amplify what is already there and potential, but we've got to learn to manage it. I mean, these things are shaping us, they're shaping how we evolve, and we've got to learn to kind of manage them, or we die.
Well, the interesting thing is we live in a cult of celebrity where the media especially feed off media. I mean, many magazines are totally... I mean, at the moment, with the unfortunate, another sad suicide, the media were waiting outside the restaurant for Mick Jagger to come out so they could photograph his face as they took that on, as if they know that his partner. And that's now being tweeted around the world.
You have to be careful about what you describe as the media, though, because often when you see those hordes of hundreds of photographers sitting outside places waiting for celebrities, they're often just individual people hoping to sell them somewhere. It's not necessarily the New York Times waiting for Mick Jagger to come out.
But this is on every major media site now. The Guardian, even the Guardian, the Daily Mail, or the Daily Mail.
You bought them, I think.
Absolutely, and then other people buy them. Then the audience buys them.
So they were just talking about an economic model.
So nothing new about that.
Yeah. So what we are, when you say we have to be better, but we live in a culture of media that is needing social media, that's needing Twitter, that's needing their feed, that is needing journalists and celebrities and everything to work together to sell newspapers, to sell clickbait, to sell all of this. So where do we learn to behave better? Where are the examples of behaving better coming from? It's not coming from mainstream media.
I think it's coming from some mainstream media, to be fair. I don't think it's not coming, News of the World, absolutely, but, I think there are other examples. And I think there's some great online magazines who canvass all these issues and write about these things and have very different viewpoints, just as some perhaps old traditional newspapers would agree.
But the Daily Mail is still the world's biggest website. So it shows there's a need in that. So, it does come back to we get what we deserve. So is there a way? Boris, you wanted to say something before?
Well, I was going to say, I'm the one who's to moderate the Notice Club Facebook page, right? And what I learned over time, and we were like the first people to do this, is that you have to have the courage to trust people. You have to have the courage to trust your audience. When we went through this, like when Dave was talking about the shit hitting the fan, the first time it hit the fan, I was actually out of the country. And everybody was on the phone and talking to me, and I said, just let the process.
But we couldn't, and we didn't, did we? We shut it down. We had to kind of learn.
But they then realised that that's actually the way to do it. Because when you trust the people, it actually, and this is the hardest thing for corporates to understand, because you get conventional messages of what I call monologue, blur, blur, blur. In this world, it's true dialogue. So you're going to get hit by all the stuff you don't like. But once your community gets to a certain size, they start determining and they start figuring out, well, that person's going off. Just going off. So that person then realises that people aren't going to take notice and they leave. If you go and read the guidelines on the Notice Club, they might have lawyers look at them. People said to me, that's unbelievable, but the whole basis of it is trust.
Yeah.
And that's the key thing.
Yeah, I can speak to that because we have a lot of that goes on in public address. A lot of the people in the community have been there long enough that they will cut things off before I do it. And it doesn't always work. We usually have one huge bust up every year, usually just before Christmas when one's flying. I try not to be involved myself, but it's very hard not to. It's actually incredibly emotionally draining trying to manage those situations. It's really, really difficult. But I have not had to ban many people. We've been running discussion forums for 8 years now. And they're very busy and popular. But if you manage things right and you have a good community that can self-manage, you don't have to, we'll never do something like KiwiBlog does with numeric points and that sort of thing. I think there comes a time when you just have to make a decision that this person is not suitable and is damaging to this community, so they're gone. But it doesn't actually happen that often. It's much harder to do that out in the world of Twitter. Because people don't know who each other are.
In 5 years, I've only voted one person off the island. In 5 years.
But that brings us to the solutions. Because what you're saying, you've got guidelines, public address guidelines.
We've got one rule. Public address rule 1 is don't be a dick.
Yeah, and that's like advertising, don't be a wanker. But in the wild, which is really the Twitter, the Facebook, I mean, Facebook's even to a certain point moderated, but Twitter is totally unmoderated. What are the solutions? This is where we're going to get now to do more of a feedback session. Are there real solutions, or do we just accept that people are assholes sometimes? Or do we look like we're talking about the anti-bullying laws? Because obviously the vulnerable are vulnerable, the fragile are fragile. And it is, do we go for the precautionary principle that if people are responding to this bullying, if it's not leading to but contributing to mental health issues, does it need to be regulated? Is that too extreme? Is there a solution, or are we just being naive?
You can't legislate behaviour. You know, look at drug use, look at all that stuff. You can't legislate behaviour. You can only address, you can change behaviour. I mean, I come from health, and I know that public health campaigns do change behaviour, smoking being a good example. But I certainly don't think that, you know, saying you shall not do this is going to stop it happening, unfortunately.
Well, Sarah, do you think there's any that needs to come for a certain extent? I mean, when you look at it, gossip columns are a form of bullying. You know, gossip magazines are a form of bullying.
Depends on the gossip column.
No, it is. If you're intruding in someone's private life and broadcasting to the general public without their permission, who here thinks it's acceptable if it's somebody else's life?
Is there a column like that in New Zealand that broadcasts?
Yeah.
Which one?
I'm not naming names. They might talk about me. But, you know, does the lead need to come from mainstream media, or do they have to contribute to it? Because, I mean,
I think if you looked at the back page, you know, the Herald has a gossip column twice a week on the back page. If you looked at that over the last 12 months, it's fairly tame. There's been almost, I can't think of an example actually of prying into people's private lives. There was, you know, I think when gossip columns first started in this country, which was actually the Sunday Star Times, it was different. It was a bit of the Wild West then because we hadn't really had a proper gossip column before. And I think lots of lessons were learnt in those first few years about that. And Charlotte was probably the brunt of some of those early gossip columns. But if you're talking about the Herald's gossip column, it's fairly tame.
Well, that wasn't the case with the Herald on Sunday for 2-3 years though, and I really think that Shane Curry should have stepped in sooner than he did. Without naming names, there was a bit of problem.
Yeah.
And I think that's one, I don't think the mainstream media carry too much of the responsibility. That was one case where someone should have stepped in sooner.
And is there an element of witch hunt mentality around all of this? Is it just, what is it within us that we do go on these witch hunts? You know, it really sometimes does degenerate down to that, and gossip columns and newspapers and online. Why do we get caught up in a frenzy? Does anyone ever notice?
The punters and punterland have been brainwashed by the mainstream media over many decades to build celebrities and other people up to a pedestal and then crash them. And as part of that whole process, the people who want their tenth of a second in fame then jump in there and attack them.
But if you look at the original quote, it goes back to 1798. I mean, that's a long time ago. So obviously there's something intrinsic in us. I mean, the witch hunts come from the actual witch hunts. So why is it we go into that herd mentality? Is it just we're social creatures so that we go with the crowd?
Yeah. And also, if you know, I write a zinger of a tweet that's a bit mean about someone, and I see it retweeted 16 times, I start to think I'm so clever. And I think there are forms of reinforcement in that too, and they're quite particular with Twitter.
So does that all come back to a power and control thing, maybe?
I think it's Schadenfreude, and I think that's a fairly common trait in all of us, and that we all have to fight against. I certainly do. And it's just that, you know, some of this new media can really amplify it, and you know, perhaps in the past gossip columns have amplified it as well, but I personally think it's innate.
It is innate, and I mean, there's something particular, and that's maybe why with, why is it innate? What is it? Why do we do it? So these solutions like out there, so how do we...
It's innate because through the era that we evolved in, it was protective. It ensured survival. But creating the other and reinforcing the sense of us has always been an innate part of human nature, and it's what allowed small communities to survive the plague, for example. So, it's this innate thing, and our lifestyles have so far exploded beyond the things that shaped us from an evolutionary perspective that it kind of really becomes challenging.
So solution-wise, so obviously the thing is to build empathy, so it's to see that the person on the other side is human. So any suggestions how you can do that, because we have it going one way, that we want acceptance, we want the social media, we want people to like us, love us, think we're witty, think we're funny, think we're smart. So that's a very human side of social media. But coming back the other way is that cut-off, that you're actually not a person, you're a screen. So how do we build empathy from not having, like everyone said, you wouldn't mostly say it face-to-face, but even when you do say it face-to-face, it's gone, whereas when it's on Twitter, someone can gossip and say, oh, Adrian said this, and just go, she's a bitch, But in Twitter, you're like, oh, so-and-so said this, I'll just spread it around to however many people I go. So, solutions, are there really any realistic solutions, ways to build the empathy? And this is really, really interesting, some questions there from everybody as well.
I know this is social media conference. I know this is social media conference, but it's been interesting to hear us talk predominantly about Twitter and social media. We've talked about forums a bit, but now that you talk about empathy, I think that raises an interesting point about teaching empathy and culture. And there are a lot of resources available online. I think, NetSafe, and I don't want to apply to Vodafone, but the Vodafone Foundation has done an excellent job of trying to educate parents, particularly, about the resources available to themselves, to educate themselves, but also to give to their children, so that the children can understand and engage in what acceptable behaviour is. And I think when we talk about empathy and trying to solve this issue, it starts with culture, and it starts with the children. And as our children go online, that this is going to be more important for us all to be advocates and push people in the right direction, to the right resources. Very nice.
And that is backed by the research, not in this domain, but in others, and that if the two sides of this is that children are very educable in terms of behaviour, and the other side of it, I think, is that, that we know a whole lot now about how to build resilience in people, and that's the other side of the equation, is that if we have a more resilient community and population, then people are less vulnerable to the slings and arrows, be they via a letter face-to-face or nowadays over social media.
And is it an understanding perhaps that it's also generational, because the younger generation, social media is the world, they get so much more from it, there is this generational cut point, that we don't realise how effective and how much it gets into people's mentality for the older generation. Do you think that's a factor as well, that we're not seeing, we're saying, oh, social media is just nasty, so we just accept that social media is here to stay, it's how we learn, how we communicate, that we need to actually do the teaching and we talk to people face to face, and adults as well, because adults can do this as well. And do you think the mainstream media would have a role to play in this, or will they continue to a large extent doing the same thing themselves?
I don't know about that actually. I'm not sure. I think that the mainstream media is learning as much as everybody else is at the moment. And if you see, the things that happened to Deborah Cohn and then Dana, the sports reporter in the last couple of weeks, who was trolled horrendously, it's about everybody's just learning. I think it's new for everyone. And so I had a question about empathy, because I was reading some studies about trolls and those really terrible people, who said such awful things to Charlotte, and they would see her go on TV and cry and be incredibly upset and really emotionally hurt and very human about it, and it kind of fed them, and it made them do it more. And so I'm wondering, is it for the masses that you can kind of try and teach empathy and have these new rules, but there's always going to be some vicious bastards out there that you just have to learn to ignore or deal with?
Is there any way, should we just ignore and deal with it, or should there be some way within a social media, some mechanism to let people know? Because we were involved with the It's Not Okay campaign, is it up to us to go to people and say, hey, this is not okay?
Someone you know it's okay to tell them it's not okay. I think we can set examples in our own behaviour, and small way, through our own media, we make it a nicer place. Also in the way that we hold people up, because, as I said, the Herald home thing was an example of people thinking they were fighting bullying. But people are quite keen on rationalising one form of bullying or another. That happens a lot. And that's a habit that we can get over. One thing from Michelle Core around the whole Charlotte Dawson thing, golden rule, she tweeted this: treat others the way you would like to be treated if you were having the kind of day there. In a way, there's a psychological leap here. Thinking, how would I be feeling if this was me? And it's a really useful thing to think.
I mean, I think that's exactly right. Most bullying does not come from, not all, but most does not come from, I want to actually be really mean to you and ultimately make you kill yourself. It comes from a place of I feel inadequate and this helps me feel better about myself. So I think it's just helping people to actually get outside of their own mindset and do exactly that, to actually see the other as well as themselves. And I mean, you can teach kids this kind of stuff. I mean, kids, when they see the impact of bullying and they realise it, it does moderate the behaviour.
But can you teach it to adults?
It's slower to learn, of course. And we're not often in educational settings where there's that kind of focus. But, I mean, potentially, of course. I mean, online education is the thing of the moment, let alone the future. So why couldn't we use online media to do exactly that?
Can I suggest whether it's mainstream or social media, the big issue is ratings and what story, and I'm sorry, Charlotte Dawson, I just wish it was some best, but you can't because it rates, it still rates. The story now has been taken over by the journalist's partner, but that's why this is obsession, that's why people want to read this, and so how can you manage this, because ratings, people want to read about this, it's scandalous, and that's still what's going to drive the media.
Yeah, I think it drives everything. It's at the moment it's a missing Malaysian Airlines plane that nobody can get enough of, and we're that. It's what we're reading and what we're seeing and what we're buying. So I'm not sure it's the media, it's us.
I'm interested in that though. I mean, I think of the Women's Weekly as one of the last bastions of the old world of media where the celebrities are very careful, or the Women's Weekly in coordination with the celebrities are very careful of what is put out about themselves. So you might see a celebrity who really only puts out about 4 items a year. There will be the cover piece in the Women's Weekly. And from my point of view, I'll kind of read it and go, yeah, I know that guy. That's a fairly basic article that they've put out about about their new home or about their first child or whatever it is. And it's very controlled. And I sort of juxtapose that against the media where the front page will say, soccer player commented in a tweet that he hated his coach. So you're getting all this kind of, on the one hand you've got the old media which is controlled and trying to give us things in a managed way. And you've got all these other medias that are just going snap, 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 whatever's going on at the time. And I wonder if we can take this opportunity, if you're no longer at the Women's Weekly, to ask you that question, how much pressure is going to go on the Women's Weekly to start trying to be clickbait for its own online content?
Just with every media, it's about their audience, and the Women's Weekly audience is older, more conservative, mostly out of the big cities, so they're more provincial, and they're kinder and warmer, and they don't like paparazzi photos, they don't like nastiness. You never see a story saying somebody was looking a bit fat in their bikini, and that's driven by the audience. It's not driven necessarily by some altruistic kind of editor. It's actually about the people who buy that magazine, and that's what I mean. I think it's about us. It's about what we buy and what we choose to buy.
Well, also, on the other hand, though, it would be a dull little if none of us could say what we're talking about a famous person's actions or what they said. I don't think we need to go that far, but one example on Twitter is you might comment on someone who's well known in the media. Whether you make a deliberate choice to copy their Twitter handle into it so they're in front of you is a different matter. And I think that's actually not necessary in this. We should be allowed to comment on public figures, but whether we actually have to make sure that they see it is something else. And that's one way that we can help.
What about politicians?
I actually really like being able to respond directly to politicians, because I'm older than some of them now, and it's actually quite fun to put them in their place, but it's still quite neat to be abusive. But I mean, Joni Lee Ross made a ridiculous tweet this afternoon about Russell Norman, calling him a foreigner and saying how dare he complain about offshore owners of houses or he's a foreigner. And it was actually quite nice to calmly put him in the place where actually Russell Norman's a citizen. I know you're trying to impress the boss, but calm down. So I think that's okay. It takes a degree of confidence to do that, but it's okay to directly address someone who's in that, who's a politician. They might cry sometimes.
Some of it quite good of it though.
Who is Colin Craig in a way? Is he just old school world, or is he just really not grasped this glorious new world that we live in? Because I mean, the tweets that we've got on Twitter about the thing would be way more, and it is libel. If you say something's libelous or slanderous, if you repeat it, you'll repeat the libel. So basically, you'll need to take everybody on Twitter to court. So is he just old school? Really?
Well, actually, interestingly, he's on Facebook as well, and what they do routinely and assiduously is delete all the unfavourable comments. And they always do it, they do it quite quickly as well, which is one thing you can't do on Twitter. I follow him on Twitter and he tweets occasionally. Every time he does it, someone retweets it with one big song. It's hard to feel too sorry. I don't think he's being bullied. But yeah, it's interesting that he does use social media, and he says some pretty good things.
It's interesting still this we're at social media and this preoccupation with amplification, because we're all media now. So, the Herald, I find great amusement seeing their stories on law. What they're doing is creating 3 paragraphs out of what their tweets. And like the scoop that she's on a boat in the harbour, which she tweeted it on the weekend. The point, I'm interested in the way this conversation's gone tonight, because it's still this privilege of, we're always weekly, I'm glad to see that still going. You are the media, you can create this, you become media, you make your own brand.
Well, she Lord's a really interesting case, because she's someone, I think, who has a real grasp on what she wants to do with social media, and seems able to ignore a lot of it. If you look at what is directed at her, there's some abuse, but almost as challenging, I think, is all the people, all the girls sitting in their bedrooms who want her attention. And if you look at what abuse to her, I love you, can you reply to me, can we meet? And I do not know how she deals with that. But I think she must, if she carries on conversations with people she knows, I don't know whether she's got some whitelist system going, some Twitter client that does that, but yeah, she seems to have a real handle on accountability.
So we've just come to the end. So just a quick, poll. Solutions. Anyone in favour of regulation? Does anybody know? Do you think that's viable, or is it just a response, a knee-jerk reaction to what's happened? Just a show of hands would be great. Okay, just a couple.
Just a lawyer.
So is there maybe a code of conduct? We need to maybe look at some way of not something regulatory, but just a code of practice or something with social media. Is that viable?
Interesting. You use trade law, you see the smiley faces and the red faces for comments around trades. Surely you talk about self-moderation around some of the websites like Amidst and things like that. Surely that sort of system, stop-go-like type system, is self-moderation or self-moderation of different comments about the appropriate. Because as you said on Twitter, you can't delete them. If you can put, I don't like this stamp on that person's tweet, surely that starts to send a message back to that person that they might be although that can create bullying.
Yeah, then it starts stuff. So are we being naive to think that it is possible to in some way create a culture change?
He's absolutely right. I think it comes down to the way that you present yourself online, and everybody's got like an IP address on a thing, so they can create new accounts and stuff, and it will follow them around without feedback. And if you're just trolling, you need to be tagged by your communities as that. Go play with other trolls. Like, there should be a place for them as well. go to have intelligent conversations, but people actually know what they're talking about. Rather, you know what I mean? And I think that the way to do that is that kind of a moderation.
So, do you see going forward that maybe Twitter or everything, all the social media platforms will, in a way, to cut this out, become more, we'll start using lists, we'll start cutting people out, we'll start becoming more self-moderating?
But we're already profiled. We're already profiled with the algorithms that they use for all of our, Cloud and Cred, Sprout, you name it. We're already profiled to an extent. So making that a little bit more obvious, a little bit more public.
So this is really Google plus circles, isn't it? So maybe this is their secret plan all along.
They're cool.
I just have a question. I just wonder is Twitter deliberately, is it a commercial decision why they don't have any kind of controlling because it actually benefits them as an organisation?
Oh no, that's not suspension though. They do have quite quickly if you're right. But yeah, on the other hand though, do you really want the potential for vexatious complaints is huge and it can end up being used as a way to shut people down. And it's the same thing with any legal or regulatory solution. I think there's a call for it with damaging and persistent material online and there needs to be something that can be done about that. But we do still have to be free to see marches of each other.
David, we'll just go through to you. So what do you think? What's the way forward?
I mean, I really like the idea of the trade me type thing because, it's like life. No one's always going to like you. You're always going to end up with vexatious or otherwise. So, but I think there's got to be some way of creating an environment that can foster self-regulation. I guess that's...
Sarah?
I think for me it's about the anonymity and that's the real danger in it. And if there was some way to make it somehow that you had to stand behind what you said, then that would make a huge difference.
Well, I really enjoyed this. I hope we've shared some light and some ideas. One of the things that we want to do with social media going forward is actually write these up so they'll be on our website so that we can continue further discussion because we haven't done that so much last year. We've had some really great discussions as well. So we do live stream all of those and they are now available on our website. So if you want to go back over any of our evenings to use them in any way, please feel free to do so. They're on our website, SMCAKL.com. And right now, it's the usual drill that there's a bit more alcohol out the back and of course non-alcoholic drinks, water. And we have to shut down by 8, so please feel free to go and have a drink and then we'll chat among yourselves. Really want to thank you all for supporting us so fantastically. I hope we will manage to shed some light or maybe some insights and hopefully we'll see you again next month with Julie. Before you all go, what's the quickly pop up and talk about? It's going to be all about politicians. So
I think it's fine. David's going to run it. He's got the politicians all on board. We're just still waiting on David. Oh, where's the microphone? Oh yeah, so we want to do politicians next month before the election gets too crazy, and we've got them all keen to come along. So on the website it says the 16th of April, but the House is sitting, so they're all free the week after that. That's that incredibly short work week, and we're wondering if everyone's going to be away, if we can still do it. But anyway, we can't tentatively book the 23rd of April. It is a 3-day work week, that's the Wednesday. Here. If we have to move the date, we'll let you know, but that'll be really exciting. We should have 3 representatives from 3 of the parties up here, and we'll be asking them what they'll be doing to embrace Twitter and social media in the lead up to the election to get us all out there and have our say.
Fantastic.